And so I think, a lot of people just look at traditional means, right? Like presentations of from teachers and everything like that. Like what makes a good presentation? It's all kind of subjective. But the beautiful thing about YouTube is we just have so much data in the back end. You can tell when somebody drops off. You can tell when the people are clicking away. And the reality is like when you get started, majority of people drop off within the first 30 seconds to a minute. And same thing on TikTok videos, Instagram videos. It's all like within the first 10% of everything. Most people that click are going to drop off. So how do you avoid all of that, right? So I think most people when they're making their content, they don't think about maybe the title, the thumbnail, and like the little intro clip, the hook that's going to entice them. They think about the rest of the video. They maybe spend 10% of their entire time on all that or rush to make the thumbnail in the morning, when in reality, that thumbnail or that title and that intro clip, like the whole entire packaging, could make 100x difference in the views. And I'm example of that. So I think the reality is that how you package it, is way more important than the video, necessarily just to entice somebody to click on it. And Mr. Beast says it himself, right? If nobody clicks, then you could have the greatest video in the world, and nobody is gonna know because they're not gonna be enticed enough to click on it.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Full Battery Media Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Trace, and I have an awesome guest with me today. Would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Brandon Keys. I've got the Green Candle Media Channel, media brand, as well as helping founders and everybody grow, specifically on YouTube. It's kind of my niche that I've really dived into. So founder-led marketing. I'm really passionate about all of that. So happy to dive into all the specifics and tell the world why they need to start making content.
Right, dude. You're speaking to the choir. How did you get started down this path? Let's start with that one first.
Yeah. So funny enough, I guess I mean the backstory is I ran track in college. Once upon a time was a great athlete. Now I'm just a washed up YouTuber. But I was running track, telling all my friends, hey, like let's look into this Bitcoin thing. Nobody wanted to listen to me except for one of my buddies. So I was like, okay, we were going back and forth, and I was telling him all these things. He's like, you know what? Maybe we should just like start a blog or start an X account, Twitter account at the time. So I was like, sure, let's do that. So we started writing, started doing all that. And coincidentally, after we started it, maybe like April 21 or something like that, he got a new job within the industry, and so did I. But his job didn't really want him to do content. And to be honest, I was never super passionate about writing. And he's like, I think you got a good personality. Why don't you just go behind the camera? And so I said, okay, let's do it. So I started doing that. And then, about 2 years into it, I wasn't really getting a ton of views or anything. So I was just basically at this point, I was like, all right, you know what? Like, I'm doing this as like a side, like right now it's a hobby. I really need to figure out what I'm doing here. So let's give it a go. Let's invest, get some editors, get some thumbnail stuff. Let's start figuring out everything about YouTube because I saw that as the biggest, maybe like ROI to get out my content. And, once I did that, a year later, I was able to take it full time. And then I've kind of just branched out from there, started doing some consulting and really just helping a lot of people grow their own YouTube channels as well. And, I've been lucky enough to meet some people who are really great on the YouTube side of things. I took an accelerator with Patty Galloway within the beginning of this year, who's helped Mr. Beast and Red Bull and the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think he just signed Neymar as well. So I've been blessed and just all of a sudden have been thrown into a world that, I guess when you had asked me this, 6 to 10 years ago when I was in my engineering degree, would you be a YouTuber and diving in and meeting all these crazy people? I would have probably told you you're crazy, and I couldn't believe my career path has diverted this way. But yeah, here I am, all by started just really putting my face behind camera and trying to figure it out, man, like I think a lot of us are.
I think the figuring it out is a journey, man. And I think that like the cool part is like, it's a fun thing to figure out. And I think that, like, at the same time, like, dude, that's such a story. Like, you've had so many cool people that you've worked with and such a cool journey. Like, I sit there and think about where I started, and then I think about where I'm at right now. And, like, if I could go back in time and tell myself, "Hey, you're gonna get this, this, and this done," I'd be like, "No way, dude." And the cool part is like, you never know unless you try. And, I think that it's so cool to, like, be inspiring other people to be trying, inspiring other people to go down that path as well. But I wanna ask you this because you have worked with so many interesting people and you've had such a cool journey. Why do you think so many great YouTube videos never get watched?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is just packaging, right? I think like
Yeah,
everybody thinks, oh, you can't judge a book by its cover, right? That's a whole other thing. But the reality is like the psychology and trying to figure out why people click on a video
yeah,
is almost more important than actually the entire video. So, I think the thing that really opened my eyes is I did, two or three different live shows with, I would call them like relatively decent guests in the Bitcoin space. At that time, I was very excited to get them, and one of them got like 800, or one of them got 900 views. One got 130 views, and the other one actually got 2,000. So it was pretty good, but for my channel at that time. And then I was like, all right, let's change this up. I left up the podcast. So if you guys want to go to my channels, it's one of the old live shows that I've did, years ago at this point. I took that down, or I kept it up, but I repurposed it. I just made the video, changed the title and the thumbnail, and added like a 45-second to a 1 minute intro clip. And those views went from like 900 to 56,000, from 130 to 38,000, and from 2,000 to 34,000. So I was like, okay, the content isn't bad, right? It's all about the packaging and how, you can really just entice somebody to click on these podcasts or click on whatever content it is. So everybody's got great ideas and got great stories, but I think just really being able to hook somebody in at the beginning, right? Because now with so much content available, videos are a lot more competitive, right? I mean, everybody thinks that attention span has gone down. I personally don't really feel that way. I think, everybody will still go binge watch Netflix or binge watch whatever as long as it's interesting, right?
mhm.
That's the biggest thing, is just piquing somebody's interest in order to click, and then also keeping their interest while they're watching. And so I think, a lot of people just look at traditional means, right? Like presentations of from teachers and everything like that. Like what makes a good presentation? It's all kind of subjective. But the beautiful thing about YouTube is we just have so much data in the back end. You can tell when somebody drops off. You can tell when the people are clicking away. And the reality is like when you get started, majority of people drop off within the first 30 seconds to a minute. And same thing on TikTok videos, Instagram videos. It's all like within the first 10% of everything. Most people that click are going to drop off. So how do you avoid all of that, right? So I think
Mhm.
most people, when they're making their content, they don't think about maybe the title, the thumbnail, and like the little intro clip, the hook that's going to entice them. They think about the rest of the video. They maybe spend 10% of their entire time on all that, or rush to make the thumbnail in the morning, when in reality that thumbnail or that title and that intro clip, like the whole entire packaging, can make 100x difference in the views. And I'm example of that. So I think the reality is that how you package it, is way more important than the video, necessarily, just to entice somebody to click on it. And Mr. Beast says it himself, right? If nobody clicks, then you could have the greatest video in the world, and nobody is gonna know because they're not gonna be enticed enough to click on it. So I think YouTube is a decision based platform comparatively to Instagram, TikTok, and these other ones. And so I think just kind of understanding what makes somebody click and what makes somebody decide to want and sit and listen to, Sean and I talk about this stuff for an hour and a half or whatever it
Right.
is. I think that's a lot of what marketing is, right? What brings people in. You could spend so much time about the marketing messaging and all of these different things, but if you're not grabbing their attention initially, then you're just lost from the beginning.
Just this last little bit, I had a massive shakeup with my team on thumbnails. They're like, "We are doing an okay job." I said, "No, no, we're not. These are nowhere enough. Like, we do not have." And so today, I sat down my team, and I laughed about it. I said, "I want you guys, each of my thumbnail people. I said, I want you to create the most freaking clickbaity thumbnail you can. I want you to go as on crazy street as you can." And they came back with stuff, and I was like, now we're talking. That's fun, man. And they're like, well, it's not serious enough. I was like, why do we need to be serious, man? Like, just get people in the door. You don't have to think about that. Like, we should really always be professional. I was like, you are going up against Joe's uncle over here who's like, I have a finance podcast. And I was like showing them, I was like, I want to show you what we're competing against. And I pulled up, and it's like YouTube has the section in the metrics that's like, these are the channels you should look at. This is the content that you're competing against right now. And I showed them the stuff, and I was like, we're playing nice right now. We're being respectful. Like, we're competing against a guy who's like, it's coming, the crash is coming, and he's got this like, terrifying thing on the thumbnail. And I said, do you think really they're going to click on us over that guy, like with what you're doing right now? And they're like, no. And I said, okay, so show me what you think they're actually going to click on. And they did it. And I was like, that's where we're at from now on. Which I want to ask you this too, because what do you think matters more on YouTube, the video itself or the title and the thumbnail?
Title and thumbnail, bar none. I mean, it's not even close. I mean, like I said, I had that podcast with, that got 56,000 views. I've interviewed him again, and it got 110,000 views. And I think the interview, I did with him, the same exact guest, I did it basically within 2 years' time. I mean, the interview was definitely a ton better, and that's probably why it expanded and got more views. But I mean, the reality is that probably a lot of people saw me get that 56,000 plus view with that guest, and they liked how I interviewed him the first time, and
Yeah.
then they're like, "Oh shit, the second one is way better." And I mean, if you look at like Mr. Beast, obviously he's the number one subscribed YouTuber, but if you go look at a lot of his thumbnails, right, for like an education purpose, it's not necessarily like something that you want, right? I mean, it's over exaggerated. It's the faces and everything like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe you don't want to have that.
Right.
I don't necessarily think you need to have all of that type of stuff in order to get somebody to click, but you need to spark some sort of emotion, right? You need to
Yeah.
have like emotion, uniqueness, and like spark some sort of like inspiration, or like an intelligence gap, a curiosity gap that makes somebody want to click. So, if you look at like Mr. Beast, right, he'll show you yeah, a $1 boat versus $1 billion boat,
Yeah.
and the thumbnail will be Mr. Beast looking like, oh my god, and it's literally a gold plated yacht. In that video, he didn't have a gold plated yacht, but it enticed somebody enough to go and click, right? Because they see these big numbers. They're like, oh, okay. I think everybody knows that these thumbnails are a little bit exaggerated. So you don't have to worry about it being so professional, buttoned up, all of these things, right? You got to get somebody in the door. And then when you get them in the door, you got to be able to execute. So getting them in the door is the first thing, right? So what I do with my team is I honestly like go through and I sift through a bunch of, thumbnails that have worked. And I have them make a 10 plus, maybe even more type of thumbnails per video. And then, we use three of them for the test. And then from there, like, all right, this one worked. Maybe we change the shirt color of the one that worked for the 3-1. So we have more backups. And you just keep iterating, iterating, iterating. And then YouTube has the data analytics in the back end where you can tell which one works. And then it's the greatest feedback loop I think that there is, just because you have so much data now at your disposal. And the reality is, attention is cheap, right? I mean, you can grab somebody to click, but because there's so many different options,
Yeah.
once you get somebody in the door, like I said, they can go and click off, go doom scroll on TikTok, or go click another YouTube video that entices them. So getting them in the door is the first part. And that's what I think most people that are, creators who are really spend a lot of time on their scripting, making sure the editing is good, all of these things, right? At the end of the day, title and thumbnail are the two biggest things that you can do to just
Yeah.
drastically change your channel.
I wanna I agree, and I wanna ask you this though, because like, why do some small creators suddenly explode while others stay stuck for years, man? That's something that people have asked me, and I have no idea. Like, I don't know, and I would love to hear from you what you think, man.
Yeah, so I mean, the beautiful thing about YouTube is that it gives every single video a chance. So
Mm,
no matter the size of your account, it will show it to 1,000 plus people, right? Is it going to do that on day one if you have zero subscribers? Probably not, right? Is it going to show maybe a big creator over yours right away? Probably, right? Because they've been more consistent. But I mean, I've had clients who, after 2 or 3 months, they had a video that didn't even touch 1,000 views, and then all of a sudden, after 3 months, it just started taking off, right? So YouTube is going to give every single video a chance. It's always going to want to find an audience, and the longer the video is, if people that it's initially showing to are clicking and sticking around for a long time, YouTube's going to want to find that audience, right? Because YouTube is an ad-based platform. They're going to want to throw ads on as many things as possible. They're going to want to keep people on the platform as much as possible. So if you're getting people to click and they're sticking around because it's good content, these small creators can blow up. I mean, like I said, I was in that YouTube accelerator. I saw people whose very first video got over 1 million views. Zero subscribers, first video, 1 million. Boom, right out the gate. So it is possible to do that. And I kind of almost call it like the TikTokification of social media, because I think, maybe 7 or 10 years ago, YouTube wasn't necessarily that way. But subscribers is somewhat of a vanity metric. The best thing that somebody could do for your account is basically watch a video and then watch the next video and keep watching every single video you put out. And then YouTube's going to realize, okay, this person's going to is making good content. They're still going to show it to you on the home screen, which where most people click on your videos. So I think a lot of people worry about the wrong things. They worry about, oh, do all my thumbnails look super uniform? Does, like, if I go to my YouTube channel page, does it look really lined out? Reality is most people just find your video on the homepage, and YouTube's going to give your video a chance and put it on there at some point in time. So no matter the channel is, I mean, the viewers here, don't do this right now, but after this video, you could go and look at YouTube and just see, hey, you're going to see maybe like Alex Ramosi or some of these big creators up there. Every now and then you'll see a video with like 2 or 3 views or a couple hundred views or like 1,000 or less. You got to wonder, why is this video on here? Well, it's probably because YouTube thinks that, the 2 people that viewed it or 100 people that viewed it view similar content to you, so maybe you would be interested in it. And
Mhm.
now it's just that small creator's job to basically make sure that they have a good title, thumbnail, and an interesting enough story in order to then entice you to click, and then it starts that flywheel really quickly.
I love that, man. And it's interesting too because once that ball starts rolling, it goes. And there was someone who was talking to me the other day about starting a business, but I think the same thing applies to starting a YouTube channel or any other type of content. It's the idea of you ever go to build a campfire, and like in the beginning, you're putting wood on, and you have to keep kind of doing some work, and you're like, man, this fire is just not going. But then there's a certain moment where it becomes sustaining. It's self-sustaining. It just starts going, but you still have to keep managing it and tending to it. And I think one of the challenges is that people don't realize 2 things. One, the amount of work that takes to get that fire going, in content. Like they don't realize, oh man, it's going to take more than I thought. But then they also don't realize that it might happen sooner than you think. And it's like there's this fire, like, but you have to then keep it up. And I think people are just either A, anticipating they light it and the fire goes, or B, like they've been stoking it for a while and they don't think it's going to happen. But if you keep it up, you're going to get there.
Yeah, you just got to keep putting yourself in the position to win, basically,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you just keep putting yourself, you keep swinging the bat. You don't go up to the plate and leave the bat on your shoulder, kind of thing. Like you're gonna hit the ball eventually, right? And I think the reality of YouTube is that there's just more that goes into a video than say Instagram or TikTok, which I think intimidates a lot of people. And success leaves clues at the end of the day.
Yes.
I mean, you're a niche creator, but there's probably other creators who are in your said niche. I mean, you're not making a video that's so out there, or you're making a video that's so out there. You could take ideas from other big creators and emulate them,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like you could see which YouTube formats work in your niche, some title, thumbnail type of niches, or title, thumbnail combinations in your niche, and go and emulate them. Bring them to your idea and see if it works. Sure, you're not gonna, out the gate hit 100 million or 1 million views every single video, right? It's gonna take some learning curve, but at the end of the day, YouTube's like a momentum based platform. So once you get one that hits, like it's going to start feeding more of them, more of them, more of them.
Yeah.
So then you got to, start to try to really refine your ideas and then lean into what works. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. When, you get one through the net, you got to keep shooting.
Yes.
Um, and, it is a big momentum based platform, but that doesn't mean that that momentum can't start from any point, right? I mean, so yeah, I mean, maybe we could dive into the momentum bit stuff if you're curious, but yeah, I mean, that's just kind of my whole view on all of that.
I love it, man. I would like to talk a little bit more about momentum. Can you tell me, like, as people start gaining momentum, first of all, how do you get momentum? And B, how do you keep momentum going once you get it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, to get momentum, you just need a breakout video. I mean, that's just kind of like the reality of it, right? So
Yeah.
you need to basically view your audience, right? I mean, I think of it as like Patty Galloway, he talks about it as CCN. So you want to think about who's your core audience? How am I going to frame it to my direct core audience? Then you have a casual audience, right? Who's maybe watches one out of every two or three or something like that, right? Doesn't watch every
Hmm.
single video, but when you entice them enough, they'll go and watch. And then you have a new audience, somebody that's maybe, adjacent, right? So say, I don't know, like a sports reference, right? I've worked with a guy who had a Tampa Bay Lightning podcast, right?
Yeah.
So he was interviewing people and just making it all Tampa Bay specific. Well, I was saying, okay, you could just make it direct to Tampa Bay, or you could make it more of like a hockey with a Tampa Bay type of, leaning or bias and
Hmm.
talk about it that way. That would, expand it. Or you could try to make it more about sports, right? And then bring them in, the sports people who are curious, into this specific hockey story. But you got to make sure you're always catering the core audience, and then, then focus on the next two. So once you create that and you kind of have an idea of who your core audience is and potential casual and new audience, then once you get a breakout video, you just lean into it,
Yep.
double down on it. How can you make a staircase of this video, a spin-off of this one that broke out? And then just keep doing that until, that idea runs dry, and see what else is working. I mean, I just got off a consulting call with somebody who's helping out a real estate developer. And, there's plenty of people in real estate. I mean, when I was helping this guy out, I went to a guy, his name's Ken McElroy. He has a great YouTube channel. I went on his channel, went to literally just videos, clicked popular. He has a video that says, like, I am rich yet own nothing. Here's what the government doesn't want you to know about wealth or something, or money or something like that. So I created a video for this client, and it says, the rich own nothing. Here's the secret to getting wealthy, or something like that. That was his breakout video that got to 12,000 plus views, which he hadn't gotten over 1,000 at that time. Sure, it wasn't to the million plus views that Ken got, but, comparatively to that channel, that was a breakout video. And then the other one started getting more than 1,000 views following that. So,
Wow.
it's all like levels to it.
Yeah.
Obviously, once you get bigger, it kind of, scales up, but you just kind of double down on what works. You go find other people and you emulate that and bring your own flavor to it. And then, once you keep creating more and more good videos, you have more people continuing to watch your videos, then you'll just continue that momentum. But I mean, on the flip side of things, you could think, okay, well, what if I throw up a stinker, right? What if
Right.
I throw up a bad video? You could be worried about that, right? I look at it as like maybe like a soccer, striker, right? Say you score goals in 4 straight games, and in the fifth game, you don't score. Well, you're not going to sit them for the sixth game, right?
Yeah.
You're not, maybe if you don't score the sixth game either, you're maybe not, you're still going to play him for the seventh game, even if you went on like a 2 game lull. So just try to not, throw up too many stinkers,
Mhm.
and obviously that's the name of the game, right? But I like to look at it as like the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the videos that you make are something that you have a good feeling that you're emulating that you think is going to work, and then 20% of those videos are maybe something you experiment with, something that, maybe hasn't been done in your niche before, maybe is a new idea. And you have low expectations for that, but it allows you to have a little bit of creative freedom. You're not following exactly what somebody else is doing, and you get to experiment. And who knows, maybe you can have a breakout video in there, but it's low expectations and it doesn't ruin the momentum. So those are some of the things that I usually try to work with myself and my clients is just, try to keep all the good ideas
Mhm.
going. And then, if you want to experiment, you can, and you do have that ability to do that. But just, take that with caution, right? I mean, you do have the ability to maybe throw up a stinker here or there.
Right? I wanna ask you this too, because 'cause I'm super fascinated about the question of, like, mistakes, so because you're talking about the stinkers, but what's the biggest mistake, like, people make when they start creating content online?
Not focusing on the packaging. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, to be honest with you. I think, like I said, like, I mean, majority of podcasts, I think, like, stop after 3 episodes. Majority of people just think that, they'll make like a YouTube video here or there. It's just getting away from it. I always tell people, you know, one, like, I think podcast formats. I mean, obviously, we're talking here on a podcast. I think podcast formats are good, but I think when most people think of starting content, their first thing is let's start a podcast. My always thing is like I think you should really create a personal brand first, and maybe we dive into that a little bit more down the line. But I think like one of the biggest mistakes is not focusing on packaging, and then two, just always reverting to a podcast type of format, which is more difficult to control the overall content than maybe a talking head or building some more personal brand type of content. So I think you know not only that, it's also creating or putting yourself on a schedule where it's just not sustainable. YouTube, it is a platform where it you don't necessarily need to put up a video every single day or put up a video even every week if that's not sustainable. You could put one up bi-weekly, monthly. It's just you have less shots on net, obviously, to figure out what works if you're inexperienced. But you also have to make sure that it's sustainable over the long term too. And I think if it becomes a drag, if you hate doing it, if you feel like, you kind of just need to do this and everything like that, then you're taking the fun out of it. I mean, the end of the day, you're making videos, right? I mean, that's either you want to become a creator, you want to help your business grow. I mean, there's plenty of different reasons why doing that, but if it's not sustainable, you're going to
Mhm.
get burnt out, and then it's going to come across on camera, and then that content's going to be bad, and then people are going to get a sour taste in your mouth. So I think, making sure it's sustainable, avoiding just starting like and reverting to a podcast initially, and focusing on the packaging really, because I think, a lot of people will spend money and just be like, all right, I'll get a camera crew out here, I'll have them film me for a day. Cool, let's do that. Like some people will watch, when in reality, you have to have kind of a story behind the video, a purpose behind it. You have to have a lot of ideas that would make somebody want to tune in instead of just like, hey, here's a day in my life type of thing.
It's the whole package, you're giving them all this stuff. I think one of the things that is so powerful is that people can figure out how to be relatable, whether it be a company or a person, and it's like, are you able to sit there and for me, right? I'm a teacher originally, and that's how I got into this because I used to teach kids. And I loved making content that could kind of extend the ability to teach. And when I found that I was good at this, I was like, well, let's lean in on that. But, I had to figure out how to make it packaged nicely so that it actually was something people wanted to watch, And if you don't know how to put it into a thing that, like something that's fun and packaged in a way that people actually want to engage with, no one's gonna tune in, like, no one gives it crap? But you talk a lot about packaging. Can you talk to me about what that means in, like, the most simple terms?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's just understanding how people learn and how they're interacting with content and videos, right? At the end of the day, people want to be entertained. So with packaging, I think it's how do you spark the curiosity of the specific person that you're trying to get to watch your video in order to watch your video and thus tune in. So packaging is just, I think, like the overall title, the thumbnail, and like the introduction hook, right? I mean, you could even see it when you're doom scrolling on, TikTok. People would do some sort of hook, whether it's, some sort of movement or something like that on short form. Usually it's some sort of script writing in a podcast. Maybe it's an intro clip, like a, 45-second, 1 minute, or even longer intro clip. I mean, all of these things are very important because, like, it just piques the curiosity in order to go and sit around for longer. I mean, let's think about how we've done it in traditional, stuff, right? I mean, movies, great example, right? There was movie posters, and then you would see movie trailers when you'd go to other movies. That would be a couple minutes of some of the exciting things that you would see in this said movie, and then there would be some sort of cliffhanger at the end of this trailer that would be like, oh damn, now I need to go see this movie because I'm curious about what happens with all of this, right? So I think just thinking about it that way, maybe your content is, maybe a sitting podcast. It's not as entertaining per se as a movie trailer, but the principles still remain the same, right? People still want to be entertained. They still want to feel like they get to know you, and they still want to have some sort of curiosity as to why they should stick around. And, like I said, the packaging is the biggest thing, just making sure that it sparks some sort of emotion that they want to click on this video and they need to figure out why. I mean, a lot of people, when you look at just traditional titles and thumbnails, you'll see they'll have, just maybe their face on it, just smiling in a suit or something. They'll have one title, and then that title will be the same text on the thumbnail. I mean, I break it down as like the three strike approach where the first one is somebody's face or some object in the background, right? If you have my face, right, on this thumbnail, let's say, maybe some people recognize me, maybe some don't, right? So maybe they're just like, all right, there's this guy backwards hat, or I don't know what picture you're going to use of me on there. Maybe it's this guy. Maybe they don't recognize me, and then there's going to be some sort of thumbnail text that accompanies the title. You need to have all of these things playing into each other. You can't have any repetition and all that, because if you do, then you're basically wasting an opportunity. Like if you say, my face, then you have my name on the thumbnail and then my name in the title. At the end of the day, if somebody doesn't know who Brandon Keys is, why are they going to go and click on all of that, right? Unless you're having some sort of big celebrity on your podcast, you need to create some sort of intrigue around it. I mean, Diary of a CEO, they get some of the biggest names on there, and that's how they do it, right? I mean, they do AI expert or market expert, or something like this to describe the person if they don't know them, and then they leave some sort of intrigue, like um, why the stock market is about to crash in the next 90 days. Market expert lines out why the stock market looks worse than 2008. Something like that, right? Where it's like, okay, well, I don't feel like the economy is that bad. Now I need to go and click on all of it, right? So I think just overall packaging it in a way where you're having some sort of curiosity gap, and you really sit back and think, when you're putting all of this up, why would somebody click on this? And it's really difficult because you do have to be really, brutally honest with yourself and not just have the bias to be like, all right, I think this is good content. Like, I would click on it. Like, if you were to see this on your home screen, would you click on it? Yes or no? And the reality is if you have like, 90% of the people, if you have a 10% click through rate off of, 10,000 impressions, that's pretty damn good. 90% of people are going to look at that, what you just put up, and said no. And YouTube is still going to think that's like, good start, basically. So the long-winded way of saying that packaging is just the full-fledged title, thumbnail, and then as soon as they click, they get confirmed of that click right away in the first 30 to 60 seconds.
I love it, man. And it's interesting because, um, I was thinking about this, and I wanted to ask you this too because eh, a lot of people are just starting out and they get intimidated by starting out. But if someone only had 100 subscribers, what would you tell them to focus on first?
Uh, Title, thumbnail. That would be the biggest thing. I would go, like I said, like I mean, there's probably some people on Fiverr that you could find. I would go and, I mean, if you don't think that editing or something like that is really in your forte, I mean, you can get by with maybe finding somebody that is a cheaper thumbnail designer on like one of these sites and, pay them, 20, 30, 40, $50 a thumbnail or something like that, maybe even less, and just tell them what you would want to base it off of. Go find some other viral thumbnail formats and just tell them to tweak it a little bit. And, that could save you some time building it out. And it's a huge potential ROI because the thumbnail is drastic. The other thing is I would, go and utilize AI. I wouldn't say like just go put in the video and say, what would you title this? I mean, my routine is basically I have transcripts of videos. I've trained my AI over a period of time of feeding it all the results and what a good title is. I go through and basically feed it the transcripts, figure out what this video is about, what are good potential intro clips, and then I get 50 titles just from there. For myself, who's been doing this for years, has had trainings and whatever, get 50 titles from AI. It'll give you probably 10 different categories and 10 different one or five different categories, 10 in each one or something like that. And then just say, okay, I like, these five, six, seven, right? Okay, then break it down on there, be hypercritical. Is there any way we can improve these five, six, or seven? And then, kind of go and just battle test it out there. Just settle on one title after all of that. Try to settle on one, have a couple backups maybe, but if you're just starting out, I would say just settle on one and then make sure you got three good thumbnail formats. And yeah, once it's done, just set it and forget it. Don't try to fidget with it, because you've got so many options now to play with tests. I mean, YouTube's got its data, servicing stuff on the back end for a reason, and it knows what works and what doesn't. I say it's like one of the best algorithms, if not the best algorithm of any of the social medias, just because it's owned by Google and which is the first largest search engine, and YouTube's the second. So, it knows what the viewer intuitively wants. And yeah, I would just focus on that, man. Focus on the thumbnails and making sure you have a good hook and trying to get 1% better just every video, whether it's a little bit of an inflection, maybe just analyzing a little bit of the retention curves afterwards, seeing where people dropped off, try to figure out why. But the initial start would just be thumbnails. I would try to get as good as thumbnails as you possibly could. And the reality is you can get somebody to do it for not so expensive, and they could be good thumbnails. You don't need to go ball out and get like the best thumbnail designer in the world in order to get breakout videos, to say the very least.
Awesome, man. Well, why do you think attention on the internet works so differently now than it did 10 years ago?
Well, I mean, for a few reasons, right? I mean, we've got people have just been making better videos. I mean, that's like plain and simple. Like, if you go watch Mr. Beast videos from 10 years ago and you watch him now, he's obviously got a huge budget. I'm not advocating for anybody to go do exactly like Mr. Beast, but people have basically been analyzing all of the data that they've been getting from YouTube for a while and being able to figure out how to make better videos. And there's more options now. I mean, we have I don't know how many freaking streaming platforms now these days, but we have 10 or 11,
Right?
12 different streaming platforms. We've got YouTube, we've got Amazon Prime is now making videos. We've got all of these different things that can take our attention away, and so the competition has elevated, thus the video quality has elevated. And there's just a lot more creators, a lot more people around making videos in
Mhm.
all of these different niches. But that doesn't mean that you can't stand out. I mean, I think it's like, maybe 90+% of YouTube channels have less than 1,000 subscribers. So I mean, there's still, to find success on YouTube is still, unique in a sense, but doesn't mean it's impossible. There's other great content makers out there who have free content on just how to make good YouTube videos. So what I would say is like, yeah, I mean, just go look at what some of these guys are lining out, and try to work on everything, especially if you're a new creator, kind of getting started. And I mean, if there's something that you think is too much, you want to do or whatever, I mean, there's plenty of people, including myself, that go and help people kind of build out these channels, and have had success and can help you basically, you know, get success a little bit quicker than maybe you would just initially. But I mean, it all depends like how you really want to approach it, whether you want to invest financially or just invest with your time. Either way, right? It's if you want to have success, you got to put time into it. Michael Jordan didn't become the best basketball player in the world by not shooting any free throws, right? I mean, he went and practiced a bunch. Same with Kobe and all these guys. So you got to kind of treat it that way, where you have to go and try to perfect the craft. And yeah, so I mean, I think that even though there is more competition and the game has changed a little bit, I think at the end of the day, you can still have the ability to create more content now with AI, and also put more shots on net to potentially break out.
If a normal person today wanted to build an audience from scratch, what would you honestly tell them to do first?
Figure out what you want to talk about. I mean,
Yeah.
there's like kind of
Right.
like a few different things, right? So I mean, one, I would tell them to focus on as like a personal brand, right? And focus on a niche. I know that is kind of hard because I like sports, I like money, and I like finance, I like to travel, I like to do all these different things. Figure out some lane that you enjoy talking about and try to stick to it. If you don't think you can stick to that one lane, then you're going to have a difficult time. So stick to one lane and make sure that the format is repeatable, whatever it is, right? If you travel a lot and you want to just start bringing a camera, sure, you could do that. But majority of people probably would just need to be making videos like sitting at their desk. That's probably the most sustained way, right? So, what kind of value can you teach to somebody based on that, right? Whether it's based on some of your experiences, what makes you unique, right? Because every person is a little bit different. But the reality is like you don't have to be like Jeff Bezos for somebody to listen to you about business or something like that,
Right?
right? So as long as you have a leg up or an advantage in some sort of niche, go ahead and lean into that.
Yeah.
Then I would say, after figuring out your niche, go and figure out the realistic audience. I like to call this the TAM, the total addressable market. You
Mm,
could do this by going searching your word in YouTube, and then go and click whatever length of video you want to make, whether it's 3 to 20 or 20 plus. Click popular, and then see how many views each of these videos go and get. So then you're kind of figuring out your audience, right? All right, I've seen, you know, I don't know, if I'm making golf videos, right? A bunch of celebrities making these golf videos that have 10 million plus views. Okay, let's think about this realistically. Are you watching it because of the golf or because of the celebrity? Probably just because of the golf, right? So
yeah.
you try, or because of the celebrity, right? So you go scroll down a little bit, you find maybe some people who aren't celebrities who made it big on YouTube by doing said big thing, and say, okay, I'm going to go follow this golf creator. He's probably the high end of the total addressable market of like pure just golf lovers, golf watchers on YouTube who want to watch it. Okay, what does he do? How can I emulate that? What are some things that are obtainable for me early on, and try to do it that way. Go and try to emulate somebody who's big and made it, and obviously don't copy them word for word or anything like that, but take, like I said, success leaves clues. So take what they've done and try to put your own flavor and twist on it in whatever niche it is, and make sure it's repeatable for yourself after you determine all of that. And then just don't worry about it being perfect. I think perfect is the enemy of good. I have a camera and a microphone now. I mean, my lighting isn't the best here. I'm in an Airbnb in Budapest, so I mean, I'm not in my normal studio or anything. But I've had podcasts get over 50,000 views where I did it on my MacBook camera, no microphone, nothing. So at the end of the day, you can always improve the quality over time.
Yeah.
And when you put something out there, I think a lot of people think everybody's going to see it right away. The reality is like you need to figure it out yourself. So the best thing to do is just start creating content and don't be afraid to do it. Because if you just start putting it out there, you'll have a better chance of hitting something. And then when you start hitting, getting some hits, getting on base, then you can, invest a little bit more money into it. Or, you'll potentially have some more money coming in, sponsors, all these other things, or more leads for your business or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. And then you can make sure that the quality is better. You can, pay for a better editor or whatever it is. There's a lot of people out there with skills that want to help in this realm, and so just realizing when you're the bottleneck of all of it, and when you can afford to help out or to eliminate that bottleneck, I think the better. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It does. Where can people go to find out more about you and what you do?
Yeah, so you guys can email me if you're interested in some help at brandon@keysmediaconsulting.com, or visit my website, keysmediaconsulting.com. And then you could also check out my YouTube channel, Green Candle. Search me anywhere, Brandon Keys. I'm sure you can find me. Not a hard guy to find these days.
It's awesome, man.